The more common for me is, seeing physical, mental, emotional healings. People will contact me with their loved ones in a coma. I'll have a conversation with them, and then all of a sudden the doctors are giving them, imminent death. They're not going to return. They're in a coma. Then they wake up the next day. The vitals are regulated, and they're off to the races. It's a new day in Hollywood. This, my goodness, my breath harnesses the universe. My inaction of just completely autonomous release harnesses anything, any place, person, or thing at will. You think it. Healing is instant. Manifestation is instant. That is what we call that primordial pulse.
How do Taoist practices impact the DNA of a person, and how are people able to live for 300, 500,000 years? So can you just talk about, you mentioned about Schumann Resonance. So you do believe that now these psychic abilities are coming online for all the people which was not there 30 years ago, like you mentioned, and we are as a collective getting into higher vibration. Hi, this is Akanksshaa. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you resonate with me, please like, comment, and share. Welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and a Talk Show. We have with us today Taoist Master San Qing. Master San is an ordained priest. Master San is a Taoist master of Qigong and Nigong, and he is a prolific channel and healer. This is part 2 of a 2-part conversation. If you have not watched part 1, then we highly recommend that you watch that. The link for that is provided in the video description. A very warm welcome to Multidimensional Soul Talk Show and a podcast. It's an honor to have you here. Namaste.
Thank you, my friend. I'm very grateful for the invitation. I really look forward to this conversation.
So you're a Taoist.
It's building up.
Yeah.
Building up.
Yeah. Yeah. I do understand that we are already in the higher vibration, as you said, but not everybody has this kind of understanding because they don't have this refined awareness and they don't understand the refined nature of presence. Like you said, that in presence of the Dalai Lama or enlightened beings or self-realized beings, there is a different experience that everybody has. As a collective, are we going to that vibration? Because not everybody has reached there, right? Some people are still operating at very much physicality level on day-to-day drama and entanglement. And as per the modern age spirituality, the understanding is that not everybody has chosen. When they came here as souls on earth, not everybody chose to ascend, to raise their vibration and go to higher frequency earth, higher frequency vibration, or rather higher vibration earth. So what is your understanding? Are we going to have the entire humanity going into this higher vibration or frequency, as you say? Or are we going to have 2 different planets where there is a planet of lower vibration or lower frequency and there is another planet, same Earth, because that is what happens as per the multiverse theory. So what is your understanding as per Taoism in this?
Yeah. It's so interesting because I always get that question from students, Shifu, why am I here? What is my purpose? And my answer is, why not? And they're like, well, no, I want to hear the enlightened version where I'm a reincarnation of some superhuman, supernatural, immortal. And the truth is that we are all that same resonance. And as I referred back to the primordial pulse that you already are in ownership of, it's now liberating that. This is where the mastery is so potent, because when people get exhibits of this, whether it's clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling, healing, all this kind of good stuff that I just throw under the blanket of sensory perception, you become diminished because you're not equally developing the stress adaptation that requires the energy potential to return to what we call Wu Wei, which is effortless action, effortless effort. That fluidity is that pulse, synchronistic, serendipitous moments where all of a sudden you're always stepping in shit. It's every day is good luck. This is where what is diminished becomes something that would not be obtainable by a path of self-realization. It goes beyond that. And you start to understand that what is desirous within the heart will be determinative of your physical capacity that will reflect your own level of awareness. So the physical body is the anchor to this experience. So understanding what needs to be conditioned will determine how far your journey is. Now, within Taoist canons, it's going back thousands of years, tens, hundreds, whatever. You understand that we have documented immortals that have lived to 300, 500, 1,000 years within the Taoist canons. Does that seem so obscure, unreal? Absolutely not. And this is in all indigenous practices. You realize that, holy moly, this access to immortality is available to all of us. And the ability to craft that and hold on to that resonance is the inaction that you find that purpose. When you surrender and realize that between the selfishness and the selflessness is the surrender, the sacrifice, that you find that your purpose is now revealed. Your true nature is now shown. Your ability to harness and hold that resonance for humanity is revealing the sentience that is part of the superpower of the humanness, and that is empathy. And that empathy will melt you down, mold you back to your original primordial state of knowing through that pulse, and you will be selfless and in servitude. You won't be able to fight it. It's just the nature of who you really are. And that is the path of everyone. Now, the Cultivation Collective right now, as my teacher shares with me, the pulsating effect of the sun and its emanating a frequency affecting the earth as the earth absorbs, the Mother Earth absorbs these rays of potential from the sun. You get a groundswell that starts to elevate the magnetism of the earth. Some people will call it Schumann Resonance. That magnetism starts to seep into the consciousness of everyone that lives on this planet. And the ultimate goal for any Taoist is to be in service for others, to raise the bar, to reveal the sentience, the superpower, reveal the empathy that comes from that self-realization, and ultimately raise the conscious collective of humanity. But this is happening all the time. The myopic effect, which is more within the humanistic aspect, is the need to make it about yourself. The need, it's always like Lao Tzu is always returns to the same thing. Very simplistic. Oh, it's fear of financial death and destruction. The world is over. Everything's happening. And he always returns to this. Very simple. Imagine you're like a grain of sand, asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. And I'm like, whoa. The simplicity of that returns you to that state. When you reach for something from the humanist, from the identity, you will always lose the grip. The grasp will disappear. It will slip between your hands. This is part of the ascended state of these sensory perceptions, and why very few people can nurture and master them. They're a jack of all trades and a master of nothing. And this is a landfill full of these things right now, currently. Oh, I woke up, I'm channeling the Pleiadians, open up a YouTube channel and get 100,000 followers. This is very common. 30 years ago, when I was practicing this stuff, that would be considered a psychotic episode. And they would come to me for exercising of that constricted, transmuted state that is showing itself through the body, through the mind. Because most healers or intuitives, psychics, mediums, they stay here and here, between the head and the heart. These two energy centers, we call them dantians, energy elixir fields. This is going to have a diminished return. You will get insight. You will get all the potential you're looking for. But because you're not feeling into the body, you're not being able to condition the body, as this is the vehicle for your experience, they become very inverted. They return to high levels of depression, anxiety, fear, even though they're getting very clear channeled information that can be verifiable through their clients, through their experience. And so they become so inverted because they're moving that needle so much that it starts to transmute into a diminished return and ultimately mortality. And this happens to pretty much 99% of the channels and healers and things that I come across. Now, to create that pulse and hold it, even though you already possess it, requires a state of sacrifice. That you believe that you are holding on to something that you cannot let go of. And that self-mastery will show itself through the simplicity of letting go. And all of this is conceptual. But to let go is to realize that you don't want for any place, person, or thing. You have no needs. When you need something, whatever it is, you are in doubt. You are in need of approval. You are in self-loathing mode, that you have to acquire it externally that already exists within you. Understanding that conditioning can be transformative and deconstructed and reconstructed is the power of internal alchemy, because that belief system turns into a knowing that is second to none. And people that are adverse to it, they start to look at you as, oh, you're so conceited, you're so all-knowing, you're so narcissistic. This is all talking about the inverted effects of what they're experiencing, that they have to describe you as such in these kind of categories. Because when you reveal your true self that doesn't require you, everything is perfection. Absolutely everything is perfection. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever you look at, the fundamentals, the most blissful state is waking and breathing and returning. This is so potent. This is primordial. This is the now moment. You will not experience more levels of gratitude and expansion and bliss, joy, love that will be never ending. It's not an end to your party. There's not a diminished return. This is free flowing. This is what that pulse is. That is that potency that is accessible to everyone. Yet through conditioning, through your humanistic experience, the humanist attempts to find things that are introspective, analytical in their nature. And all this stuff sounds great, and most people can run through the gamut of these different descriptions, and they go, yeah, I know. And then I'll go, okay, so let's examine your experience. The proof is in the pudding, my friend. Show me what it is that you experience that would lead you to believe that you know. Because I realized this very, very quickly 36 years ago. The less I know, the more I know. When I accept I know nothing, I know everything. And this is the very problem with human identity and, of course, the consumption of more information, is a distraction, and it becomes internalized, and then the intellect starts to precede the intuitive state, and you become corrupted, diminished, rotten, corroded, and it will start to feed into the flesh, because there's not, you do not, and you are not required to know who you are. Does not require your attention or intention. That's the part where that comes up to speed. Then all of a sudden, my goodness, my breath harnesses the universe. My inaction of just completely autonomous release harnesses anything, any place, person, or thing at will. You think it. Healing is instant. Manifestation is instant. Magic is instant. That is what we call that primordial pulse.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to know your view about whether we are, as a collective, going into the higher vibration or not. So
Right.
you mentioned about Schumann resonance. So you do
Right.
believe that now these psychic abilities are coming online for all the people which was not there 30 years ago, like you mentioned, and we
Right.
are, as a collective, getting into higher vibration. You talked a lot about embodying that in this vehicle here and now.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned about my son, and my son tells me even in my body, and he is listening right now to the conversation, and I can feel him. So when we have this embodiment of the source of that energy within this body, and we use this as a vehicle for a service, and that is when we start actually having more realization and remembrance. But at the same time, you talked about immortality a lot for this body. So, for this physical vessel, when you talked about immortality and you talked about diminished returns a lot, because healers and channelers, and they kind of tend to expedite aging, is what I understand.
Well,
Through
they expedite the one facet of the diamond.
Yeah.
So when
So
someone obsesses on love, love is one facet. Love is not the answer. Yet
yes.
most people go, "Oh, love is the answer." No, it is not.
Okay. We'll
Yeah,
come to that. My
yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
question is uh, immortality. When you talk about immortality and about the physical body, how do Taoist practices impact the DNA of a person, and how are people able to live for 300, 500,000 years? So can you just talk about that?
Yeah, right. So let's look at the fundamentals. So you're looking at your flesh, your mitochondria, the activation of what we call ATP, which is the spark of divinity that resides within all action and inaction within the physical body, right? So you are starting with this energy source. It diminishes, goes from creatine, phosphate, into glucose, into glycogen, which is what's stored into the muscle tissue. And you can convert these energy sources from ketones to just glycogen, depending upon the pathway of what you nourish the body with, whether it's plants, whether it's flesh, protein, or other elements that are stacking up a physical result. Now, within epigenetics, an understanding of that, which is a more scientific-based realization, it's very much the same. You are a product of your environment. So the messaging of your environment enters the self-receptors on the dermal layer of your skin. This is still the entering of the body through the alchemical process of pineal, thalamus, and pituitary gland. These are the three treasures that we create alchemical processes. We use the blood, the culture medium, to shuttle those into accessing everything right down to a gene expression that can be altered by the mind. So to nourish that, it starts with understanding there is no separation, and you need to start to now cultivate evidence of such. So simplistic fortifying of the flesh, most martial artists or teachers that get obsessed with yang energy have a diminished return. They become really profound healers, and they get involved in martial arts and things of physicality, and their end result of their end of life is normally within the 50s and 60s, because that's the timeline of them illuminating and basically becoming obsessed with this one element, this one energy potential, and it admits through the body, and the body is the diminished return. Now, if they're able to find a teacher that can show them the qualities of the yin and the qualities of the yang, and then you return those to the primordial magnetism of a pulse, you start to see this. So when I do things like put a skewer from my arm, pull it out, and there's no entry or exit point, these are abilities of chi packing, right? This is what we call chi packing, where we saturate the physical body. It goes down to a subatomic level where you are now supercharging the mitochondria within the body and giving yourself a level of development that precedes anything in the physical state. So we can access, the easiest way to access anyone is to have an emotion or have a physical reaction, and I enter into their body at a very, very quick rate with little to no effort, effortless. And so you puppeteer them through the fascia. And so we consume and concentrate that is what we call fajin. And so let's say, for example, it's not just like a distant healing. Let's say I have someone in the room that puts their hands on me. The more they assert force, the more I own them. I control them, because I am just sliding into that pulse of magnetism, into their resistance, which will come in their mind, in their mental, emotional state, and ultimately transmute through their body. The harder they attempt to control me, the less control they have. First, I would seep into the fascia, then remove their connection with the earth, and then have way with them in relation to their organs, find their most efficient organ, one that's in excessive. Most people have spleen or liver that's excess, and then I just funnel and transmute the energy into that, and they have a mental emotional effect that will reside in a physical submission. And so these are all parts of a martial way of thinking, right? That's not how we heal. This is part of understanding that people bring this stuff in. The less you know, the more you know. The more you need to control. If you grab a sand in the palm of your hand and you just hold it there, it glistens, it's beautiful, it's soft, it's silky. The second you attempt to grab it, it seeps out of your hand and it ultimately disappears. This is the same with everything within this material state. You need to understand that when you go into what people refer to as the stillness, it's a knowing, it's a wholeness. It's not a stillness in never moving again. It's realizing that you're now tapping into that pulse, and that will ultimately affect every thought, every feeling, every action that you have will have the same permanency that would not be possible without that cultivation. So you are saturating. So the more you chi pack, the more you cultivate the energy, the longer your life force is, and it will continue. Back in those days when I was training in China, there was immortal teachers that were in their 90s, 100, and they would be like, at the front of the class teaching. And for example, one specific time, this one teacher fell off the podium. And he was going, and you're thinking this guy's like 98 years old. thinking, oh my goodness, he's going to break a hip, he's going to do whatever. One of the students jumped out and cradled his fall. The teacher got up and said, thank you, Dao, and walked away. Because when you know, no matter what, there's a certainty that would not be certain, that would not be something you can grasp, that embodiment requires nothing from the person. And when you hold that resonance, it will show itself in every aspect of your reality. And it will exhibit what would be called a charmed life. Anything you want, need, or desire will be provided for you because you're in service to help and heal others at the highest level. Accept and love all. And love is not an all-consuming hallmark throwaway. People tend to diminish it with that. Love is an oscillating facet of that diamond of perfection. It's whole. It's a concentration. So when you dip in between the breath in and the breath out, is a concentration, what we call absorbing of the riches, which shows evidence through the flesh. And we cultivate that as a hardened diamond that cannot be faulted, cannot be destructed. It is permanent. And that starts to bleed into everything and expand and oscillate. This shows you evidence. And diamond is also one of the elements that we use to cultivate the upper dantian, activating the light and nourishing and oscillating and emitting that. And so the middle dantian uses a red ruby, and the lower dantian uses a blue emerald. And so these gems are nourished with the keepers of those dantians to activate this present moment. Did I answer the question? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So you did talk about how the practices that you do actually impact the gene expression and the mitochondria, and you also talked about working with the pituitary, thalamus, and
thalamus, pituitary, thalamus, and pineal.
Pineal, yeah. And pineal gland usually secretes melatonin and DMT. So yeah, can you talk about? Sorry.
No, I mean when people understand that they can cultivate their own DMT and have what considered is an out of body experience for days on end. When I teach you how to do that, you're like, I'm never leaving home and I'm never taking drugs again. It's just like so many people need some evidence and they refuse to invest in themselves. So they're always looking for the external transitory state. Psychonauts are very common in that sense. They refuse to invest in their own self-realization. So the YOLO effect is present. Give me a pill, give me a drug, give me something that can emulate what this is. And then, hey, it's a doorway open. But what happens is the doorway cracks open and then closes again. And then your desire for more of the same is a diminished return because it's an external state.
Yeah, there are a lot of controversies. There are some who are for it, some who are against it. So I understand.
Well, you have to embody your whole body, right? Like I've traveled the world with teachers, and I've come across teachers I've shared tea with that literally levitate 5 feet off the ground with my eye nose, and they smoke a massive bag of weed all day long. This is not anything to do with the physicality. And so when you are breathing, so when I say the breath, when you enter the middle, that vesica point, that center point, that Wu-Ji, that no longer requires anything mortal, anything diminished. We're now breathing from consciousness. Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, organically you are developing those superpowers, as you talked about the psychic abilities. And you also talked about, because you are in that state of oneness with the pulse, that everything is nothing and nothing is everything, you are accessing that field, and that is what is causing synchronicities and miracles. So can you talk about some impossible synchronicities or miracles experiences from your life or from
Sure.
somebody else's life?
Sure, sure. I mean, most recently, my eldest son was helping me in my shop. I have a shop where I do woodwork and stuff at my house. And he was picking up a piece of equipment. And as he picked it up, he put his head into the edge, a very sharp edge of the machine, and put a gash in his head like this. And it was super deep. You could see the bone. Now, anyone else would run to the hospital immediately and sew it up because it was so deep and so wide. Instantly, present moment, boom, no infection, no inflammation, and it sealed up to a little line in his head. And it's like that happened in, I don't know, a minute, 30 seconds, depends. It depends on where we're at in this process is. And this is just accessing the now moment. This is, anyone has this ability, but there is no room for fake it till you make it. Because when I exhibit this, when I see this, when I witness this, I am not participating in, and I am not imparting my personality into this state. It is observation, and it's a resonance that is held, and you hold it there, and it just brings everything, returns it to whole. And that's that potency of that pulse. And everyone talks about it conceptually until they witness it. Furthermore, I've briefly spoken to you about the passing of my youngest son, and then drawing his spirit back into his body. There is nothing more sobering to a parent than to witness the death of their child. I appreciate and value everything you experience. And you and I both know your son is more present now than he ever has been, and he hasn't gone anywhere. That charge you're getting right now, we're getting as this unification with him present is so potent. It's so inspiring. It's so much gratitude I have for being here. I'm so grateful to have you in my life, your son in my life. This is what we're talking about. Witnessing that, and I've transitioned hundreds of people in my path as a priest. It's a very profound moment of celebration. It's a celebratory moment when you are surrounding someone in that last moment of transition from death to rebirth. And that doesn't, people are very afraid of something that is so natural and is a completion and creation that happens every second of every minute. And the physical flesh is that very diminished return. So you want to exercise that potency of immortality to lengthen that avatar as your journey continues. And it's not until someone gets halfway through where they're a YOLO that, I don't really care about it. And then they're like, well, this is not enough time. I want to do more. It's so easy for anybody to access that pulse, that magnetism, and that we all have the access to it. It's about cultivating it and making it possible that you can see the evidence through your experience. And, the more common for me is, seeing physical, mental, emotional healings. People will contact me with their loved ones in a coma. I'll have a conversation with them, and then all of a sudden the doctors are giving them, imminent death. They're not going to return. They're in a coma. Then they wake up the next day. The vitals are regulated, and they're off to the races. It's a new day in Hollywood. This is so potent, but you're exercising this potency is helping everything return to whole. That's why the magic is so potent for a Taoist, because we are not taking from one to give to another, a diminished return of this. It's a symbiosis. And when you charge everything with that resonance and everything returns to whole, everything benefits from that remembrance. It's not just I want to just cultivate this, but it's also not part of that scarcity that comes with people talking about, well, if you do this for yourself, you have to do it for 3 others. There's a golden rule. I mean, that's just mortality, humanistic, narcissistic nonsense. The universe does not have a moral compass. It's whole. The universe is you. You are the universe. What you must identify with is understanding that this is a dance that goes back and forth. And that if you're experiencing something, say an astrologer gives you, oh, well, the sun is in line with the moon, or Jupiter's in line with Mars, or whatever you want to define as an astrological a determinative factor. This is a spark of divinity. This is not the whole diamond. It's a facet of the diamond. That's why nothing is permanence. To find permanence, you must be everything. It doesn't come from just, oh, well, that's always the way. Every time I have a conversation with an astrologist or astrologer, I don't want to say the wrong, because they get very, very offended if I call them an astrologist. An astrologer, this is the very fundamentals and origins of the Taoist path is our intimate relationship with the universe. And it has always been, as is all indigenous practices. That's where you really get the secret source information. What happens is people tend to get fixated and myopic on one thing. This is the same inverted, extroverted effects of the energy. Don't get sold on one thing. When you accept you know nothing, you know everything. The second you believe you know everything, you're going to know nothing. And it's going to show itself in your experience, which happens with that symbiosis. It's always happening. So people can't explain methodologies. Theology is nothing more than that. It's a facet of the diamond, just as is love, just as is gratitude. The wholeness is your whole. You are everything. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned about your son for a bit, and you also mentioned about curing some terminally ill patients miraculously and bringing them back. So, when you do this healing, are you doing some kind of tissue or cell regeneration? What exactly is going on? And you mentioned that in 30 seconds you heal your son's very bad wound. So, how does that work? Like, if you were to heal?
Well, okay, so the first part is understanding that we're not doing anything. Our natural divinity, our divine state is such. And so when people get caught up in, I'm a healer, I'm a magician, I'm a psychic, I'm a Qigong master, I'm a Reiki master, I'm a master, this is where they become distant from their true nature. And I've said this a couple of times, and let me say it one more time. Your participation is not required, ever. And this is the fundamental part where you create these layers upon layers upon layers. Now, when I'm experiencing these things, it's literally this now moment. I have a metamorphosis where you literally watch things wiggle and shift and change and return and resolve. And you'll see the flesh start to mend in front of your eyes. You'll see the wiggling, the distortion turn back to completion. This is what's taken place. This is what I witness. But it requires the resonance. Just like any guru, any healer, anyone that you are in the presence, that where their presence precedes you, you feel it. It's palpable. And the biggest part that people have is they want this ability so badly they'll never receive it. Yeah. They'll never, ever acquire it because it's one little facet. What happens is when you create the stress and the adaptation and then the expansion, you complete and then you rebirth again. This is happening all day long, every day. This is what we call the bellows. The biggest thing that people have is their desire for one aspect. When I see a student that gets obsessed with one modality, one healing aspect, right? It's problematic. It's problematic in the sense that they will become fixated. And what happens is, as the river flows, as water flows, when you put a bunch of rocks in the river, it starts to accumulate and redirect that water, and there's obstruction. This happens when you're on the path of self-realization and that resonance. You need to be able to return to it. It needs to be repeatable, but it will not be obstructed or obscured by the state of what you believe is the personality. And this is where people are like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, no person, no place, no thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm Brahman, I'm healing, I'm consciousness, I'm conscious, cosmic consciousness, I'm all these things. Well, this is conceptual for most people. But to experience it, what happens is when I first experienced this 36 years ago, I had a defining moment. I had a defining moment where I was like, I can't share this with anyone, man. There can only be one Jesus Christ, and that's me. And I got really protective. I got like, I kept, and then Lutsu would come in and go, listen, this is what happens when you first witness this stuff. There is a level of, an attractive level through your personality that you want this to be only acquired by you. You want everyone to know. You want to be the next coming of Moses and Jesus and heal. This is a natural effect that returns back to wholeness because it's a humanistic perception. What happens is you start to realize your gift is your offering. That means that the more you share, the more you receive, and the less necessary is the need for containment, which is what humans love to do. They want to hoard the information. They want to hoard the abilities. They want to hoard. This is problematic for any path of self-realization. And so when you get into healing, what happens is people have a container. You have to realize, are you in possession of a container that can hold that charge? This is the only question you need to ask yourself, because this is the biggest diminished return for any healer. They get into the healing. Oh, I'm a healer. Look, I do all this stuff. I mend people. I heal them. They're mentally, emotionally, physically. And then 3 days later, someone goes, that's back again. I have this problem. You said you're going to heal me, but we are not exhibiting the realization that the evidence of this diminished return comes in the physical flesh. Then where is that person at? Are they ready to hold that resonance and contain it for themselves? Because their remembering only takes a few seconds. This is where the healing happens. It's like they literally remember this. They go, oh, this is who I am. You amplify the resonance, and they connect with that equal to or greater than. And this is me breaking down the actual mechanisms. Is this what happens in 3 seconds? You're not sitting there going, oh, duh, 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 duh. But what happens for healing is people always have this self-loathing, this inability to value themselves, and the idea that it's never enough. And these very basic traits is what makes a healing a very impermanent moment that could be permanent, yet you should make aware to the individual what the potential is. That particular woman, I had an event where I communicated with their mother. She came back, and then the daughter, I was entertaining the daughter, but I could see quite clearly the daughter didn't want to have to care for her mother, but she was doing the virtue signaling. I want mommy back. And so when she came to me and I communicated with the mother said, look, all I want is a loving relationship with my daughter, and I want her to create that bond. And I relayed that to her. She said, oh, yes, I don't want her to die. Da, da, da. So she comes back the next day out of the coma, spends 4 days hanging out, realizes the daughter doesn't want her here, doesn't love her, not interested in creating a relationship, and drops right back into the coma, and she's gone. She's out. And the daughter, and I said, look, I express the communication. I'm the bridge between you and your mother, helping you understand this. But I knew very clearly, and I wasn't about to condition you by saying it, but you had no interest in wanting her to return. Yet you were shocked when she did. You're like, holy crap, that's no bullshit. This guy really is communicating. And my mother returned for 4 days. Only you didn't want the relationship. You didn't want to put in what was necessary. She felt her heart broken because there was a diminished relationship. You said that you would commit to that, and then the return was, you had no intention. You were virtue signaling. She's like, how did you know that? Really? Really? This is what we do, right? And so
So she
when people
returned,
get,
I'm sorry, she
yeah,
returned physically?
yeah, she returned physically for 4 days and then realized her daughter had no interest in wanting to create a relationship with her, and then she died.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It was a broken heart. Like, but in most cases, I witness people coming back and they live their whole lives out richly. But that example was one where I could see very well the daughter was not interested, but she was virtue signaling. She wanted to do all the right things. I told my grandparents, my grandmother, I told everyone that, I want my mother to be alive. Da, 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 da. And then, of course, the real intention was not there. And she
Okay.
was so soberly slapped in the face when I explained it to her that you could see that. You knew that's what I felt. Really? Your mother knew. Your mother knew. That's why there was a condition. She gave you the condition. It's like, I will come back if you give me this nurturing. And of course, with that, out the door. I mean, everyone creates their own fringe, their own parameters, their own creation, their own experience. This is something that needs to be validated and known, that that truth is for the individual. The absolute truth is your truth and only your truth. It's no one else's truth. Anyone that gives you an absolute, run in the other direction, because there's a million ways up the mountain.
Yeah.
You say tomato, I say tomato. There is no right or wrong. It's for you to experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a few questions that I ask all my guests towards the end as a rapid fire. So can I ask you those questions?
Yes.
If you were to explain multidimensional soul to anyone, in short, how would you explain it?
Multidimensional soul is now.
Now.
Yeah, now.
Okay.
Because again, soul in of itself is an interpretation of what we're experiencing, and that in turn can divert to spirit. And there's many variables. But if you wanted a loaded action-based moment where you're self-realized, it's now.
What is holistic well-being according to you?
Holistic well-being is a diminished return. Holistic in of itself is a very corrupted humanistic word to describe wholeness that does not take place from the words seated within the finite mind or the human condition.
Okay. What is the ultimate purpose of life?
The ultimate purpose of life is now.
Okay. What is love?
What is love? Love is one facet of the diamond. And when realized, we are everything. We are all things. Love is just one diminished return from a humanistic perspective that identifies an experience or an oscillated, reverberated quiver of energy potential.
Okay. What is self-love?
Self-love. Now, this is really a mastery beyond words. So you look within the desirous of the heart and realize that this is the source and access to the true nature of reality that goes beyond words, beyond constructs, beyond expectation, because self-love is in of itself a paradox, a misnomer, a misdirection that will keep the seeker in the mind and the condition of the emotional state, which is all substrates of the human condition. To realize human beingness is to enter into that labyrinth, which is the finite mind, and realize that corrupted, empty, bankrupt state will never give you a return. It's only until you exit that labyrinth and realize on the other side, the human beingness is all things. That is the superpower, where you are connected to you are everything. And that can only be self-realized through a method that will identify not a transitory psychological state, but something that is felt from the body, mind, and spirit as all things, the tapestry, the pulse, the cloth of perfection, the primordial mother.
What is your parting message for our audience?
The parting message for your audience is, we always speak on this in simplistic terms. We remind the man who's never left the village, let him know that he has seen the world. Your accessibility to this magnetism, this magnetic pulse that we speak of through this whole conversation is yours. It's your Tao given right. It's the infrastructure and the animation to everything. And you are accessing it right here, right now, through this charge, through my breath, through my spoken word. It is recognizing through your body that this is truth. This is your truth. And it will be realized viscerally, kinesthetically, somatically. And there'll be no need for thought, no need for participation. And you will return and you will experience wholeness.
Okay. And do you have any message or anything to say to me, my podcast, for my son?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm in your son's presence, which is beyond potent, there is just this complete re-entry to the mother, re-entry to stillness, but stillness beyond thought. It's an embodiment that is expansive beyond anything that you could imagine from a construct of the human mind. And this is a potency and a pulse that we are experiencing, you and I, right now, through this communion, through your son's presence. We are sharing this trinity, which results in this unified state. And I'm just so forever grateful that he shares his presence, that you are holding that torch and basically emitting that and helping him transmit it through this dimension, through this material state. And it's helping hundreds, thousands of people, and indirectly millions of people. And this is a path that is on a daily basis. You're recognizing that you are whole. And that beautiful part is so nourishing to the heart. I'm just very grateful for you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful to you. It is an honor having you here on my talk show. Thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
Sure. Yes. Namaste. Thank you for watching and listening in wherever you are in the world. As Ramdas says, that we all are just walking each other home. So thank you for co-creating the new earth along with me and our guests. And if you resonate with me, do subscribe to my channel and do let us know how you find our episodes. Thank you so much. Lots of love.